I believe money is a tool human beings can use to positively influence their own destiny. Unfortunately, though, there seems to have never been a time in history where individuals have had so little power or control over their money. Central banks, government regulations, and a bloated financial system means that most people exist in a system that's not controlled by them, a system they have almost no power to change or influence. A system that seems to forever favor those at the top. But what if this was about to get even worse? And what if you were about to lose the final piece of control you have over your own money? There is something coming to your country very soon, and it seems to be the biggest change we are going to see in how we use our own money. It is a new technology that seems to be just a few years away at best, and it seems that not that many people know about it. It's something that would give your government powers over your own money that have never existed in history before. The thing I'm going to be talking about is CBDCs, and why I believe that this is a tool that is not really going to be helpful for the majority of humanity. And at the end, I am going to share with you how you can protect yourself from what is coming. So let's go for a ride and explore this potentially terrifying future that maybe you and I could stop. Before I get any further, we have an incredible newsletter that people just love. That's an extra way for us to reach you. So if you'd like to find out more, there's a link in the bio. About Canada. Before I talk about the future, I want to talk about what is happening in our world right now, and it illustrates my worries of what could be happening to our money very soon. Recently, you might have heard about the large-scale protests that are happening in Canada. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the protests and whether or not I believe in the stance of the protesters or not. I do think that this is something that you can research in your own time. But I am going to talk about how the government has used financial restrictions in order to try to stop and control these protests. During the protests, tens of thousands of people and vehicles clogged up Canada's cities, but mostly in the nation's capital of Ottawa. People living in these cities complained about how their businesses and lives were being disrupted by noise and blockages, and they wanted their government to intervene. So the Canadian government first started with threats and then arrests in an effort to end the protests. Nothing seemed to be working though, so after a while, the Canadian government pulled out the big guns and took people's ability away to survive. First, Canada froze access to millions of dollars in donations that were being sent to the protesters from around the world. And although many donations were coming from abroad, more than 50% of these donations were coming from other Canadians, proving that protesters had a lot of support from inside their own country. But when that didn't work, the government started to take even more drastic measures. And after implementing emergency laws, they began freezing the bank accounts of people involved in the protests. And this started to work, because one of the easiest ways to stop a human in their tracks is to take away their ability to survive. The protests in Canada, they are not over, but the government's financial restrictions has lowered the amount of people that are able to attend these protests. Now, you could argue that the government has every right to punish these protesters because they were disrupting other people's lives, but at the same time, the government was disrupting the lives of the protesters, which is why they were protesting in the first place, so who's right? It is not my place to say, but I do believe that both sides of the story should have an equal right to be heard. But here is where the big problem lies for me. In this disagreement, there was only one party that was able to restrict finances of the other. It is not the everyday people that have the ability to immediately restrict the government's money. Now, this is a serious imbalance of power. And this is something that gives the governments a huge leg up when it comes to disagreements with their people. And this is where the focus of this video comes in, which is CBDCs, and why I believe this is going to cause a greater imbalance of power, and why this is coming to your country very soon. About CBDCs. This guy's name is Rishi Sunak. Now, he has a very fancy government title in the United Kingdom. However, to us everyday folk, he is the country's chief financial minister. And recently, he unveiled his proposal of G7 nations to implement what they call central bank digital currencies, what I've referred to in this video so far as CBDCs. CBDCs are digital currencies, just like the cryptocurrencies many of us already use today. Coins like Bitcoin, Ether, Doge. CBDCs would work the same way that crypto does, in that they would be a total digital form of money. And in short, they have the potential to change our financial system forever. One of the favorite things that people love about cryptocurrencies is that it is decentralized. It is the power in people's hands because they choose how they save it, use it, trade it. But with CBDCs, it wouldn't be the same. Just like the way your government controls your country's money and is responsible for creating and managing it, they would also control and issue a CBDC. So unlike a crypto, a CBDC wouldn't be decentralized. It would be centrally controlled, organized and regulated by your government, just like any other type of money. So basically, the CBDC would take the biggest positive of crypto and it would get rid of it. And so the control would no longer be in people's hands. It would be given back to the governments where they would regulate it and also be under the influence of some of the most powerful people and corporations in the world. It would no longer be decentralized and it would no longer be a tool of the people. And I would argue that I don't think we need any more people governing our destinies or our money. But the thing is, this isn't even the worst thing about CBDCs, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first I want to talk about how close we may be to this becoming a reality in our world now. Most people haven't heard about CBDCs yet, but chances are they're coming to your country very soon. The image on your screen shows all the countries that are currently testing a CBDC or who have already started implementing them already. It's a lot. And the number of countries is growing fast. Now, when Rishi Sunak announced his proposal to create CBDCs in countries such as the UK, US, Germany, and other, he used really beautiful words to describe this new tool. Words like safety, security, and inclusion. Words that make you really think that you should welcome CBDCs with open arms. But there is a word that's often linked to CBDCs that not that many people seem to want to talk about, and it's a word that would grant governments permission to do things with money they've previously not been able to do, and that word is programmable. A CBDC would be programmable, meaning that just like a piece of software, the government would be able to put restrictions on it with digital rules. And this would give them an immense amount of financial power over you. Power that I will say is a little bit terrifying. So let me show you how this could potentially play out and provide you with a few hypothetical examples to illustrate my point. In times of economic hardship, your government doesn't want you to save money. They want you to spend it. Because when you spend money, it stimulates the economy. It makes money flow. So what if they could force you to spend your money? Well, with a CBDC, that would be possible. Your government could program your money to expire, meaning you would have a time limit to spend it. If it's not spent within a given time frame, for example, within 30 days, the money in your account would just disappear. Obviously, you wouldn't want your money to expire, so because of this expiration date, you'd go out and spend it instead. Basically, you'd be forced to take the action your government wants you to take. With a CBDC, it doesn't matter if you want to save your money or not, because that decision would soon be in the hands of your government. The idea of expiring money isn't actually hypothetical. Just last month in China, they rolled out their own form of digital currency and they have been testing the expiration of money. But if that is not already concerning enough, what if your government wanted to control the types of things you buy? Well, with a CBDC, that is possible. We all know the world is currently obsessed with carbon emissions. And of course, it's great that we should care about our environment. Well, very soon, personal carbon allowances are likely to become a thing in much of the West, meaning that just like big companies, individual people will be limited to an amount of carbon they'll be allowed to put out every month. With a CBDC, a government could program your money so you can't buy fuel or plane tickets or even non-green foods and groceries once you hit your monthly carbon limit. Basically, your government will be able to completely control the things you can or cannot buy by programming your money. Apart from carbon, I'm sure your government would have a whole bunch of reasons as to how and why they would be able to control your spending habits. For me though, I honestly would prefer in a world where I get to choose what it is that I can and cannot buy and when I choose to do so. I don't need some government body looking over my shoulder, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of you that would probably agree with this. But there is one last example I want to share on how CBDCs could be used in order to restrict your personal freedoms. As I just mentioned, China is one of the world's leaders in creating digital currency. but they're also a world leader in censorship and punishing their citizens for stepping outside the lines. In China, saying negative things about the government or taking part in protests can already result in a citizen's right being taken away. And the Chinese government already blocks some of these people from being able to buy train tickets, plane tickets, or even being able to get a passport. I believe being able to travel or get a passport are basic human rights. But with a CBDC, your government would have the power to restrict you from these things, just like is happening in China today. There are plenty more examples I could give you, but hopefully these points are already illustrating what is possible and how CBDCs could be used in order for governments to control your money, your life. Now, in the two examples I've referenced, I have been talking about China, and I'm sure a few of you are thinking, well, that's China, it's not going to happen here. Of course, I'm not going to have such financial restrictions at my doorstep. Well, maybe think again. In Canada, this guy has already spoken out about removing travel privileges and driver's licenses from people who take part in protests. And he's already limiting people from being able to access their own money. People who are disagreeing with their government. Not only that, but just a few years ago, he also said that he admires China's dictatorship. And no, I'm not making that part up. So if this stuff is already happening in the West, how much longer until it gets worse? How much longer until countries such as Canada or perhaps US, UK start using CBDCs in order to restrict people's financial freedoms? Or taking away your access to your own money because you disagree with your government? I think something that a lot of us often disagree with. And what about them restricting your ability to buy whatever that you choose to buy? I suppose only time will tell, but if this doesn't really sound like a fun future that you'd like to participate in, there could be a solution. So let's talk about that. Before we get any further, if you think that this is important and more people should know about it, like, comment, share it around with people so we get more people talking about this very important issue. Look, it is very possible that CBDCs could be used as a tool for good, and it could help us make our lives with money just a little bit easier. And there is the argument that is being used that CBDCs could help to eliminate the illegal activity that is happening within the land of cryptocurrencies. But by one way of looking at it, crypto is used by criminals far less than normal money is today. So the argument that crypto is only for shady business may not exactly be true. We already have digital currencies that allow us to use and store our own money. And the best part about them is that it's decentralized, meaning that the power is in our own hands and we get to decide what we do with our own money rather than having some government tell us how we can use our own money. So it seems that we already have a solution for a secure, safe and inclusive way of using money today. Something that basically all of us can have access to right now. So when I think about it this way, I can't help but to think that the only reason why governments want to have CBDCs is so that they could have extra power and control over our money and our lives, and potentially to shape our future the way that they'd want to shape our future. So to me, there is one very simple solution. When inevitably the CBDCs come to your country and the government starts promoting it as a beautiful tool that we should all use, just don't. Quite simply, just refuse to use it and concentrate on ways that are already existing on how to store and use your own money. Use cash or existing forms of electronic banking, or maybe also explore the possibilities of crypto so more people adopt this. In short, vote with your wallet. Vote with the kind of money that still allows you to have the power in your own hands, instead of handing over the power to people, organizations, corporations that already have enough. Sometimes I know it can feel like we don't have any power of our own futures, and it feels like we're stuck in a system where we have zero control over the outcome. However, I do believe that when we come together, we have so much more power than they lead us to believe. So use that power and make decisions in your daily life that will guide us towards that beautiful future that we all deserve. A future that benefits us, not one that benefits them. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, we have an amazing newsletter that people literally love so much, so you have to check it out. There's a link in the bio. And also don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one.